She'll Still Be Dead at Halftime is the 16th episode of the sixth season of Two and a Half Men. This is directed by Jeff Melman, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. It's an okay episode. It's not one of my favourites, but there are some good moments. There are some maybe awkward treatment of one of the characters as well, and I'll talk more about that as we go through things. Starts off with Charlie and Chelsea watching basketball, and I think Chelsea made a valid point. She thinks that the basketball players should all be the same height. I think that would be very difficult to achieve, but I think it's a good point. And she then explains that she's actually going to her ex-mother-in-law's funeral as she was close with her and she wants to go, which is fair enough. And that means that she will be spending time with her ex-husband. And I think it was a good thing for her to just let Charlie know. She and her ex-husband just didn't get along in terms of their outlook for life. They didn't have the same aspirations or anything, so that's how that relationship ended, and that it makes sense. That's why she's going to spend time with him. She's okay with that. She was close with his mother-in-law. From Chelsea's perspective, it's not a problem, but she let Charlie know, and Charlie tries to not seem concerned, but also definitely is concerned. And while Chelsea's away, he decides to go to the movies with Alan and Jake to take his mind off of things. And just as they're about to leave, they open the door and there stands Wanda, played by Diora Baird, and she comes over for a booty call and Charlie entertains her. And Alan and Jake are both really irritated by this. I like the fact that Jake was annoyed by this because it really showed a maturity in Jake, but also helped to show that Charlie's bad habits, to maybe want for a better phrase, aren't completely rubbing off on Jake. He's not adopting Charlie's attitude, which I think is really good to see. And Charlie then talks with Alan and Jake. Alan is using a bunch of big words, and Jake responds to this by saying, "This is why Mom gets pissed off at you so much," which I liked. I liked that a lot. I will never discourage somebody from using big words. Flex your vocabulary. But Jake also has a point. And Charlie admits he can't go through with it. He doesn't want to do anything with Wanda. He cares about Chelsea too much. And just as he's saying that, the phone rings. It's Chelsea. Her ex hit on her while she was there, which is wildly inappropriate, but let's just assume that he's grieving the loss of his mother, of course. Maybe he was emotionally all over the place and he was just trying to grasp onto affection from, well, his past. So it's not acceptable, but maybe we can understand why it happened. Chelsea's coming home and she wants to see Charlie. No problem, they can get rid of Wanda in time, except she's now passed out on Charlie's bed. And this is where it gets a bit awkward. Not so much in their actions, but more so in the language. They try and, Alan and Charlie try and move Wanda, but it's not going to plan. And then Chelsea arrives while Wanda is still there. So Charlie takes Chelsea into the kitchen, and Alan asks Jake to help him take out the trash, which is obviously code for Wanda. Now, I realise I'm reading too much into this, but could they not have come up with something else Jake could have helped with, rather than referring to this woman as trash repeatedly? It wasn't just a one-time thing. And I just think maybe they could have gone down a different route, because, and I do believe I'm reading too much into it, but it is a thought that I had, so other people might as well. This woman who turned up on Charlie's doorstep for meaningless sex may not be the most admirable action, and they're now calling her trash. And I realise it's just code to get around saying there's an unconscious woman in Charlie's bedroom, but I just think maybe they could have gone with something a little less offensive there. And then Jake manages to get her into his room, and he's sitting next to her and taking pictures with her while she's still passed out. And it was uncomfortable, and it didn't sit right with me that there were no real repercussions for the way they were treating her. So I didn't love that. It's not the biggest issue, because I don't think they were actually trying to treat her badly or refer to her as trash, other than just using it as a code word. But obviously, this is how I've read the episode in parts, so other people might do the same, and I don't think that's a very good look. And we're near the end of the episode at this point. Not much else had happened. There's a lot of back and forth, and honestly, even though there's not a lot of variety in what happened, the pacing's not too bad. It never felt slow. It felt quite steady, so I don't really have an issue with that. And Charlie is then in bed with Chelsea, and as Jake has left the room, we actually see Wanda coming to from being passed out, and she is about to leave and then goes upstairs to Charlie's room to look for her shoes. And obviously she doesn't want to leave barefooted. And she walks in the room with Chelsea and Charlie there. And that's how we end their part of the episode. The actual ending is Alan and Jake about to go back into the house to retrieve Wanda, just as she's leaving, as if nothing happened. And then that in itself is also a bit of a problem. Not again, I'm maybe looking too deeply into it, but here we have a woman who has been manhandled and maneuvered, and she has no idea that it happened. At least as far as we know, she had no idea that it happened. And that in itself is also not a great message that could happen to her without her knowledge. So it's quite problematic, but maybe I'm looking too much into it. Anyway, she leaves, and in that moment, Alan and Jake, Alan realizes they still have Charlie's credit card because they were going to get her a hotel room, and they decide to leave with the credit card. Also probably wise to leave because the aftermath of Charlie and Chelsea might not be great. So not a bad ending. It is a very awkward episode. On the surface, it's fine, but these are obviously thoughts that I had that I can't ignore, so there's a chance that other people have had these questionable thoughts as well. Am I reading too deeply into it? Is it really that big of a deal? Part of me wants to say probably not that big of a deal, but part of me thinks, it is awkward, and it's not really a great way to talk about or treat somebody. So, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence. But it is a decent episode, that aside, even though I realise that's the bulk of the episode. There are some good moments. And the biggest lesson, of course, is if you're in a relationship with somebody, don't entertain somebody who arrives through a booty call when that person with whom you're in a relationship is out of town. So that is the biggest takeaway. Don't do it. It's not worth it. She'll still be dead at halftime. Might be problematic in some ways. A good episode in others. Ultimately, it's not a bad episode of 2.5 Men.